How dare you show up here and act like you care? Isabella's voice cut through the elegant murmur of the charity gala like a blade. Her dark eyes blazed with 9 years of suppressed fury as she faced the man who had destroyed her world. You walked away, Marcus. You chose your precious empire over your own family. Marcus Blake, the tech billionaire who commanded boardrooms with ruthless precision, stood frozen in his designer tuxedo, his usual confidence shattered. Isabella, please. Let me explain. Explain what? She hissed, stepping closer, her red dress seeming to glow with her anger. How you were too busy counting profits to answer my calls. How you signed those divorce papers without even reading them. How you abandoned us when we needed you most. Behind her, an 8-year-old girl with Marcus's exact amber eyes watched the exchange with curious innocence, unaware she was witnessing her father's world crumble. Mama, why are you upset? The little girl's voice broke something inside Marcus. His daughter, his flesh and blood, calling another man daddy while he remained a stranger. Because sometimes, sweetheart, Isabella said, her voice softening as she turned to the child. Grown-ups make choices they can never take back. But you always tell me everyone deserves a second chance, the little girl said, looking between her mother and the tall stranger with tears in his eyes. Marcus dropped to one knee, his voice barely a whisper. What's your name, beautiful? Sophia Martinez, she replied proudly. I'm 8 years old, and I'm an artist like my mama. Martinez, not Blake. She didn't even carry his name. Isabella's hand moved protectively to her daughter's shoulder. Come on, Sophia. We're leaving. Wait, Marcus called out, desperation cracking his voice. Isabella, I know I don't deserve anything from you, but please, give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes to explain why I'm here, why I need you both in my life. She turned back, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. You had 9 years to reach out, Marcus. 9 birthdays, 9 Christmases, 9 years of watching our daughter wonder why her father never loved her enough to stay. I never stopped loving you, he said, standing slowly. Not for a single day. The words hung in the air between them, loaded with years of pain, regret, and impossible hope. Have you ever realized too late that you threw away the most precious thing in your life? Have you ever been so focused on climbing the ladder of success that you forgot what you were climbing toward? What you just witnessed was the moment tech billionaire Marcus Blake, worth $2.3 billion, discovered that all his wealth couldn't buy back 9 years of missed bedtime stories, birthday parties, and the chance to be called daddy by the daughter he never knew existed. Tonight's story is about a man who had everything money could buy, but lost everything that actually mattered. Marcus Blake built an empire that dominates Silicon Valley, but he was about to learn that true power isn't measured in stock prices or market share. It's measured in the trust of a child and the forgiveness of the woman you betrayed. But sometimes, life gives us a second chance when we least deserve it. The question is, what would you do if you discovered you had a child you never knew about? And could love really conquer 9 years of abandonment and betrayal? Stay with me, because this story will challenge everything you think you know about priorities, redemption, and the price of success. If you've ever struggled with balancing ambition and family, or if you believe in the power of second chances, hit that like button right now and let me know in the comments. What would you do in Marcus's situation? 12 hours earlier, Marcus Blake stood on the terrace of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city sprawl beneath him like a glittering circuit board. At 37, he commanded an empire that stretched across 3 continents. Blake Technologies had revolutionized cloud computing, and his net worth had crossed the $1 billion mark before his 35th birthday. Yet as he sipped his morning coffee, a rare Hawaiian blend that cost more per pound than most people made in a week, and familiar emptiness gnawed at his chest. His phone buzzed. Another notification, another deal, another opportunity to expand his already vast holdings. He glanced at the screen and saw a reminder that made him pause. Harmony Foundation Gala, 7 p.m. Black tie required. The Harmony Foundation. Isabella's charity work had always impressed him, even during their brief marriage 9 years ago. She dreamed of using art to heal communities, to give children hope through creative expression. He'd thought it was naive idealism back then, too focused on building his company to appreciate the beauty of her vision. Mr. Blake, his assistant, Jennifer, appeared in the doorway. Your father is on line 1. He says it's urgent. Marcus suppressed a sigh. Richard Blake's calls were always urgent, always demanding, always centered around expanding the family legacy. Even at 72, His father treated Blake Technologies like his personal kingdom, with Marcus as the reluctant prince. "Marcus," Richard's voice boomed through the speaker. "I need you at the office. The Soul investors are getting cold feet about the expansion." "Handle it without me today," Marcus replied, surprising himself. "I have other plans." A pause. Richard Blake wasn't accustomed to being refused. Other plans? More important than a $200 million deal. Marcus looked out at the city again, remembering Isabella's laugh, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her art. "Maybe they are. You're becoming soft, son. Your grandfather built this empire with ruthless determination. Your mother, God rest her soul, understood that sacrifices were necessary for greatness." "And what did those sacrifices get you, Dad?" Marcus asked quietly. "A big empty house and a son who only calls when business requires it." The line went dead. Marcus set down his phone and made a decision that would change everything. He was going to that gala. 3 hours later, Marcus stood in his walk-in closet, selecting a tuxedo. The space was larger than most New York apartments, filled with hand-tailored suits from London, casual wear that cost more than luxury cars, and accessories that could fund a small startup. Everything perfect. Everything expensive. Everything empty. He pulled out a black Tom Ford tuxedo and remembered the last time he'd worn formal wear with Isabella. Their wedding day. She looked radiant in a simple cream dress she'd designed herself, her artistic eye evident in every elegant line. They danced to an old jazz standard, her head against his chest, whispering about the life they'd build together. 3 months later, she was gone. "Sir." Jennifer knocked softly. "Your driver is here. Tell him I'll drive myself tonight," Marcus called back. He needed the solitude, the time to think about what he'd say if he saw Isabella. What could he possibly say to justify 9 years of silence? As his Aston Martin navigated the Manhattan streets toward the Four Seasons, Marcus's mind drifted back to that terrible month when everything fell apart. Isabella had been trying to tell him something important, calling repeatedly while he was in back-to-back meetings with venture capitalists. His company was on the verge of its first major breakthrough, and every conversation that wasn't about code, algorithms, or market positioning felt like a dangerous distraction. "Not now, Isabella," he'd said during one call, barely looking up from his laptop. "Can we talk about this after the Jensen deal closes?" Her voice had been strange, vulnerable in a way that should have stopped him cold. "Marcus, this can't wait. I need you to listen. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out later. I promise." But there hadn't been a later. 3 weeks after that conversation, divorce papers arrived at his office. He'd signed them in a conference room between meetings, telling himself he was setting her free to find someone who could give her the attention she deserved. He never called to fight for her. Never asked what she'd been trying to tell him. Never even read the papers carefully enough to see the small notation about pregnancy that would have changed everything. The Four Seasons ballroom glittered with Manhattan's elite. Tech moguls mingled with philanthropists, celebrities posed with social media influencers, and the champagne flowed as freely as the networking conversations. Marcus moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his presence causing the usual stir of recognition and deference. Marcus Blake, the man who revolutionized cloud storage. A tech journalist approached with a recorder. "Any comment on the Soul expansion rumors?" "Not tonight," Marcus replied smoothly. "Tonight is about supporting the arts and giving back to the community." The journalist looked puzzled. Marcus Blake, notorious for turning every public appearance into a business opportunity, was deflecting? This was news in itself. Marcus accepted a glass of champagne and scanned the room, hoping and dreading that he might see Isabella. Part of him wondered if she'd even come. The Harmony Foundation was her passion project, but facing her ex-husband at a public event would be complicated for anyone. "Ladies and gentlemen," the evening's host announced from the stage, "please welcome the founder and artistic director of the Harmony Foundation, Isabella Martinez." The applause was warm and genuine. Marcus turned toward the stage and felt his breath catch in his throat. Isabella emerged from the side entrance wearing a dress that seemed to be woven from liquid fire. The deep red silk hugged her curves perfectly, the color bringing out the warm undertones in her olive skin. Her dark hair was swept up in an elegant chignon, revealing the graceful line of her neck. She moved with the same confident grace he remembered, but there was something new in her bearing, a strength forged by years of independence. She was even more beautiful than he remembered. 9 years ago, Isabella began, her voice clear and compelling. "I started the Harmony Foundation with a simple belief. that art has the power to heal, to inspire, and to transform lives. Tonight, I want to tell you about one of our most successful programs, our Youth Mentorship Initiative. As she spoke about at-risk children finding their voices through painting, sculpture, and music, Marcus felt a familiar stirring of admiration. This was the woman he'd fallen in love with, passionate, dedicated, using her talents to make the world better. I'd like to introduce you to one of our youngest success stories, Isabella continued, gesturing toward the side of the stage. Everyone, please welcome Sofia Martinez. Marcus's champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering against the marble floor. A little girl emerged from the wings, her hand confidently in Isabella's. She wore a white dress with red flowers that complemented her mother's gown, and her dark hair fell in loose curls around her shoulders. But it was her eyes, amber eyes identical to his own, that stopped Marcus's heart completely. She couldn't be more than 8 years old. The timing. "Hi everyone," Sophia said into the microphone, completely unafraid of the crowd. "I'm Sophia, and I love to paint. My mama taught me that colors can tell stories just like words can. I painted something special for tonight's auction. It's called Hope Rising, and it shows how beautiful things can grow even in dark places." The crowd applauded warmly, charmed by her confidence and poise. Marcus stood frozen, calculating dates in his head. 8 years old. 9 years since the divorce. Isabella had been trying to tell him something important. She'd been pregnant. His daughter, their daughter, had been growing inside her while he dismissed her calls and prioritized his meetings. She'd given birth alone, raised this incredible little girl alone, built a successful foundation alone, all while he built his empire in ignorant isolation. "Mama says everyone deserves a chance to create something beautiful," Sophia continued, now warming to her audience. "And that the most beautiful things are made with love." As mother and daughter left the stage together, Marcus pushed through the crowd, his usual social graces abandoned. He had to reach them, had to confirm what his heart already knew, had to somehow bridge 9 years of absence in a single conversation. But as he approached the area behind the stage, his path was blocked by Isabella herself. She'd seen him coming, and her expression was a complex mix of anger, pain, and something that might have been hope. "Hello, Marcus," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the storm in her eyes. And that's when the confrontation we witnessed earlier exploded between them. 9 years of hurt, anger, and missed opportunities pouring out in the elegant ballroom where Manhattan's elite pretended not to watch the drama unfolding in their midst. The little girl who didn't know her father's name stood between them, innocent and curious, while the two people who had created her faced the reckoning that was 9 years overdue. What happens next will determine whether a family torn apart by ambition can be healed by love, or whether some mistakes are simply too devastating to overcome. The confrontation has begun, but the real battle for redemption is just starting. The tension in the air was suffocating. Other gala attendees pretended to examine their champagne glasses while stealing glances at the drama unfolding near the stage. Marcus Blake, the man who never showed weakness in public, stood before his ex-wife with tears threatening to spill from his eyes. "Mama," Sophia tugged at Isabella's dress, her innocent voice cutting through the emotional standoff. "Why is the nice man crying?" Isabella's protective instincts flared. She knelt down to Sophia's level, her red dress pooling around her like liquid fire. "Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings, mi amor. Why don't you go find Aunt Carmen? She's by the dessert table." "But I want to stay with you," Sophia protested, her amber eyes, so heartbreakingly like Marcus's, studying her mother's face with concern. "Please, sweetheart, just for a few minutes." Sophia hesitated, then looked up at Marcus with the fearless curiosity of childhood. "Are you okay, mister? You look sad." Marcus's composure cracked completely. He crouched down to her eye level, his voice barely a whisper. "I am sad, beautiful girl. But seeing you, meeting you, it's also the most wonderful thing that's happened to me in a very long time." "Why?" Such a simple question, but it held the weight of 9 years of absence. Marcus looked helplessly at Isabella, who stood frozen between protecting her daughter and confronting her own buried emotions. "Because," Marcus said slowly, "I think you might be the most important person I never knew I was looking for." Isabella's breath caught. She recognized the tone, the same gentle honesty that had first made her fall in love with him. But that man had disappeared under layers of ambition and paternal pressure. "Sophia, go find Aunt Carmen. Now." Isabella's voice carried a firmness that brooked no argument. The little girl looked between the two adults, sensing undercurrents she couldn't understand. Okay, Mama. But don't be sad, okay? And you too, mister. Sadness isn't permanent. That's what Mama always tells me. As Sophia skipped away, her white dress with red flowers a bright spot in the elegant crowd, Marcus stood slowly, his eyes never leaving Isabella's face. 9 years, Isabella said, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. 9 years, Marcus. Do you have any idea what that's been like? Explaining to a 3-year-old why she doesn't have a daddy? Sitting through school plays and art shows watching other families while we sat alone. Isabella, I swear to you, I never knew, because you never listened. The words exploded from her, causing nearby guests to step back discreetly. I called you 17 times that week. 17. Each call more desperate than the last. And you know what your assistant told me the final time? That Marcus Blake doesn't take personal calls during business hours. The memory hit Marcus like a physical blow. Jennifer, his previous assistant, had been overzealous about protecting his time. But he'd given her those instructions. He prioritized his empire over everything else. What were you trying to tell me? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Isabella's laugh was bitter. That I was pregnant. That we were having a baby. That I was terrified and needed my husband, the man who promised to love me in sickness and health, in good times and bad. And instead, you got divorce papers to sign, Marcus said, the full horror of his actions finally sinking in. Which you signed without even reading. Isabella continued, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. If you had read them, Marcus, you would have seen the pregnancy disclosure. But you couldn't be bothered with the details of ending our marriage. Marcus felt like he was drowning. Every revelation made his past choices seem more monstrous. Why didn't you tell me after? When Sophia was born. I would have. You would have what? Isabella interrupted. Rushed over with a checkbook? Set up a trust fund and called it fatherhood? You made your priorities crystal clear, Marcus. Blake Technologies came first, second, and third. There was no room for a wife and child in that equation. Marcus moved closer, his voice desperate. That's not true. I loved you. You loved the idea of me, Isabella corrected. The successful artist wife who looked good at corporate events and didn't interfere with your real passion, building your empire. The accusation stung because it held truth. During their marriage, Marcus had compartmentalized his life with ruthless efficiency. Isabella was his personal life, kept separate from the consuming demands of his growing company. I was 28 and stupid, Marcus said. My father had drilled into me that emotion was weakness, that personal relationships were distractions from building something lasting. Well, congratulations, Isabella said sarcastically. You built something lasting, and you missed everything that actually matters. Across the ballroom, Sophia had found her Aunt Carmen and was animatedly describing her encounter with the sad mister. Marcus could see her gesturing enthusiastically, her whole face lit up with excitement. His daughter. The child he'd never held as a baby, never soothed through nightmares, never taught to ride a bike or helped with homework. Tell me about her, he said quietly. Please. What's she like? What does she love? What makes her laugh? Isabella's expression softened slightly at the naked longing in his voice. She's extraordinary. Brilliant like you, but with an artist's soul. She's been painting since she could hold a brush. She reads voraciously, already above grade level. She's kind, funny, incredibly intuitive about people's emotions. Does she know about me? About why her father isn't in her life? Isabella hesitated. I told her that her father was a good man who loved us but couldn't stay. That sometimes adults make difficult choices they can't change. You protected me, Marcus realized. Even after what I did, you protected my memory and her mind. I protected her, Isabella corrected. Children need heroes, not complicated truths about parental failure. But Marcus, she's started asking harder questions. She's 8 now, not 3. She wants to know why other kids have daddies and she doesn't. The pain in her voice was evident. Isabella had carried this burden alone for years, being both mother and father, protector and provider. Let me try, Marcus said. Let me be part of her life. Part of both your lives. Isabella shook her head. It's not that simple. You can't just waltz back in because you finally feel guilty. Sophia has routines, stability, people who care about her. You're a stranger. Then let me stop being a stranger, Marcus pleaded. Give me a chance to know my daughter. Our daughter, Isabella corrected sharply, stopped being yours the moment you signed those papers without a second thought. The words hit their mark, but Marcus pressed on. Legally, maybe. But biologically, emotionally, she's mine too. And I think part of you wants me to fight for her. For both of you. Isabella's facade cracked slightly. You think I've been waiting 9 years for you to come back? That I've been pining away for the man who abandoned us? No, Marcus said softly. I think you've been protecting yourself and our daughter from the possibility that I might disappoint you again. But Isabella, I'm not the same man who walked away. These 9 years without you, without knowing about Sophia, they've been the emptiest years of my life. Before Isabella could respond, Sophia came bouncing back, Carmen trailing behind her with an apologetic expression. Sorry, Bella, Carmen said. She insisted on coming back. You know how persistent she gets. Mama, Sophia called excitedly. Aunt Carmen says the sad mister is famous. She says he's on magazine covers. Marcus looked down at the little girl who was studying him with newfound interest. I'm not really famous, sweetheart. I just run a company that makes computer programs. Like video games? Sophia's eyes lit up. Not exactly, Marcus smiled despite the emotional turmoil. More like the invisible programs that help computers talk to each other. Sophia considered this seriously. That sounds important. Mama says important work helps people, even if they don't know about it. Your mama is very wise, Marcus said, glancing at Isabella. She always was. Isabella felt her heart skip at the look in his eyes, the same look that had made her fall in love with him 10 years ago. But she steeled herself against the familiar pull. Sophia, say goodbye to Mr. Blake. We need to get home. Blake. Sophia tilted her head. Like the Blake Technologies building downtown? The really tall one with the cool lights. Marcus's breath caught. His daughter knew his building. Had Isabella driven past it? Did she point it out? The thought that Isabella might have shared even that small connection to him with Sophia made his heart race. That's right, he said. That's my building. Wow. Sophia's eyes went wide. You must be really smart to have such a tall building. Intelligence isn't measured in building height, mi amor, Isabella said gently. Remember what we talked about. Success means different things to different people. There was a subtle rebuke in her words, a lesson she'd clearly taught their daughter about values versus achievements. Marcus felt another stab of regret for all the conversations, all the teachable moments, all the bedtime wisdom he'd missed. Your mama is absolutely right, Marcus said, crouching down again. The smartest thing I ever did was marry your mama, and the dumbest thing I ever did was let her go. Isabella's breath caught. Sophia looked between her parents with growing confusion. You were married to my mama? The innocent question hung in the air like a bomb. Isabella's face went pale as she realized the conversation had taken a dangerous turn. Sophia, she began. A long time ago, Marcus said gently. Before you were born. But it was the happiest time of my life. Why aren't you married anymore? Sophia asked with the directness only children possess. Marcus looked at Isabella, seeking permission to answer honestly. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. Because I made some very bad choices, Marcus said. I thought work was more important than love. I was wrong. Sophia processed this with the seriousness of a child trying to understand adult complexities. Mama says everyone makes mistakes. She says the important thing is learning from them and trying to do better. Your mama is the wisest person I know, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. And yes, I've learned. I want to do better. Isabella felt tears threatening again. This conversation was moving too fast, revealing too much. Sophia was bright enough to start connecting dots, and Isabella wasn't ready for that conversation in a public ballroom. We really do need to go, she said firmly. Sophia has school tomorrow. Marcus stood, his mind racing. He couldn't let them walk away again. Not now that he'd found them. Wait, he said, pulling out his business card and pen. He quickly wrote something on the back. Isabella, this is my personal number. If you ever need anything at all, please call me. Isabella hesitated before taking the card. Marcus, I know I don't deserve a second chance, he said quickly. But she does deserve to know her father. And I deserve the chance to prove I've learned from my mistakes. It's not about what you deserve anymore, Isabella said softly. It's about what's best for Sophia. Then let me show you that I can be what's best for her, Marcus pleaded. Let me show you both that love can be more important than ambition. Isabella looked down at Sophia, who was watching the exchange with rapt attention. clearly sensing this was about more than adult friendship. "Mama," Sophia said quietly, "he seems really sorry. And you always tell me forgiveness is brave." The simple wisdom from her 8-year-old daughter hit Isabella like a revelation. Out of the mouths of babes. "We'll see," Isabella said finally, tucking the card into her purse. "But Marcus, if you disappoint her, if you make promises you can't keep, I will never forgive you." "I understand," Marcus said. "And Isabella? Thank you. For raising such an incredible little girl. For being both parents when I failed to be one. For everything." As Isabella took Sophia's hand and led her toward the exit, Sophia looked back over her shoulder. "Bye, Mr. Blake. Maybe I'll see you again soon." Marcus watched them disappear into the crowd, his heart both breaking and soaring simultaneously. For the first time in 9 years, he had hope. But he also had the overwhelming weight of proving himself worthy of the two most important people in his world. The real work was just beginning. Can you imagine the shock of discovering you have a child you never knew existed? If this story is hitting you emotionally, share it with someone who needs to hear this message about what really matters in life. Marcus has found his family, but winning them back will require more than wealth and charm. It will demand a complete transformation of everything he thought success meant. Marcus couldn't sleep. He stood in his penthouse at 3 a.m., the city lights blurring through tears he refused to let fall. In his hands, he held Isabella's business card from the charity gala, simple, elegant design featuring one of her paintings. Isabella Martinez, Artistic Director, Harmony Foundation. Martinez. She'd taken back her maiden name completely, erasing every trace of their marriage. He opened his laptop and began what felt like the most important research of his life. Not market analysis or competitor intelligence, but learning about the family he'd abandoned. The Harmony Foundation's website showcased Isabella's vision brilliantly. Photos of children covered in paint, laughing as they created murals. Teenagers finding their voices through photography workshops. Art therapy sessions helping trauma survivors heal through creative expression. And there, in the Meet Our Team section, was Isabella's bio. Isabella Martinez founded the Harmony Foundation after experiencing firsthand how art can heal and transform lives. A single mother and accomplished painter, she believes every child deserves the chance to discover their creative voice. Her daughter Sophia serves as both inspiration and frequent collaborator in the Foundation's youth programs. Single mother. The words hit him like a physical blow. While he'd been building his empire, Isabella had been building something infinitely more valuable, their daughter's future. Marcus dove deeper, finding local news articles about the Foundation's growth. Isabella had started with a single after-school program in a community center basement. 9 years later, she operated 3 locations across the city, had helped over 2,000 children, and regularly collaborated with schools and social services. She'd built her own empire. One based on love, healing, and hope. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. "Mr. Blake, your father has called 6 times about the soul meeting. Should I schedule something for tomorrow?" Marcus stared at the message, then deleted it without responding. For the first time in his adult life, his father's business demands felt insignificant compared to what really mattered. He kept searching, hungry for every detail about his daughter's life. Sophia's artwork appeared in several Foundation newsletters, paintings that showed remarkable sophistication for her age. A watercolor series called Emotions in Color had won a youth art competition. Her artist statement read, "I paint feelings because sometimes words aren't big enough for what's inside us." 8 years old, and she already understood concepts that had taken him decades to grasp. Marcus found video footage from last year's Foundation Gala, Isabella speaking passionately about arts education, while Sophia, then 7, sat in the front row beaming with pride at her mother. The love between them was palpable, a bond forged by years of just the two of them against the world. A bond he'd had no part in creating. Mr. Blake, his housekeeper, Maria, appeared in the doorway. "Sir, it's almost dawn. Have you slept at all?" "I can't sleep, Maria," Marcus admitted. "I found them. My ex-wife and my daughter." Maria's eyes widened. In the 8 years she'd worked for Marcus, he'd never mentioned having a child. "Sir, I have a daughter I never knew about. She's 8 years old, brilliant, beautiful, and she doesn't even know my name." The older woman's expression softened with maternal understanding. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," Marcus said honestly. "How do you make up for 8 years of absence? How do you prove you've changed when your track record says otherwise?" With patience, sir. And by showing, not just telling. Marcus nodded, Maria's simple wisdom cutting through his executive-trained tendency to overcomplicate everything. Show, don't tell. Actions, not words. He had an idea. 3 days later, Isabella arrived at the Harmony Foundation's main location to find something extraordinary. The previously empty lot next door, which she'd been trying to purchase for years to expand their programs, was bustling with construction activity. "Excuse me," she called to the foreman. "What's being built here?" "Art therapy center, ma'am. Fully equipped studios, performance space, gardens for outdoor classes. Rush job. The owner wants it completed in 6 weeks." Isabella's heart sank. Some developer had swooped in and bought her dream expansion space. The lot she'd been saving every penny to purchase, hoping to create a comprehensive healing center for children who'd experienced trauma. "Who's the owner?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. The foreman consulted his clipboard. "Blake Holdings, LLC." The world tilted. Isabella grabbed the fence for support as the realization hit her. Marcus. Somehow, he'd found out about her expansion dreams and bought the property. "Mama." Sophia came running from the foundation's front door, backpack bouncing as she rushed to Isabella's side. "What's all the noise? Are they building something cool?" "I'm not sure yet, mi amor," Isabella managed, her voice tight with a mixture of anger and something else she couldn't name. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Before you get angry, please read the attached documents." Isabella opened the attachment with trembling fingers. It was a property deed transfer, the lot next door, valued at $2.8 million, being donated to the Harmony Foundation. No strings attached. No conditions. A simple note was attached, for Sophia's future, and all the children you're helping to heal. You were right about art changing lives. "Marcus, Mama, why are you crying?" Sophia asked, tugging on Isabella's jacket. Isabella quickly wiped her eyes. "Sometimes people surprise us in good ways, sweetheart." "Happy tears?" "Very confused tears," Isabella admitted. "Come on, let's get inside." But as they walked toward the foundation's entrance, Isabella's phone rang. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. "Don't answer it, Mama," Sophia said, having recognized the serious expression that meant grown-up complications. "We don't like complicated phone calls." Despite everything, Isabella smiled at her daughter's protectiveness. "Sometimes we have to take the complicated calls, mi amor." "Hello, Marcus." "Please don't hang up." His voice came through clearly. "I know the property purchase might seem presumptuous. Isabella interrupted. "Marcus, you bought a $3 million lot without asking me. That's not presumptuous, that's..." "What?" She struggled for words. "It's the kind of gesture that makes me remember why I fell in love with you in the first place and hate myself for it." The honesty in her voice hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Isabella, I don't want to complicate your life. I just want to support what you're building. No strings, no expectations. You don't even have to see me. But that's the problem, isn't it?" Isabella said softly. "I do want to see you, and that terrifies me." Sophia, who had been pretending to examine her art supplies while clearly listening to every word, looked up at her mother with knowing 8-year-old eyes. "Is that the sad mister from the party?" she whispered. Isabella nodded, and Sophia immediately grabbed the phone. "Hi, Mr. Blake. This is Sophia. Mama told me you bought us a new building. That's so nice. Are you going to come see it when it's finished?" Marcus's voice caught with emotion. If your mama says it's okay, I'd love to see it, sweetheart." "Mama," Sophia said, covering the phone with her small hand. "He sounds sad again. Can we invite him for dinner? You always say food makes everything better." Isabella felt her carefully constructed walls crumbling. "Sophia, it's complicated. I heard you tell Aunt Carmen that complicated just means we haven't found the simple part yet," Sophia said with the devastating logic of childhood. "Maybe dinner is the simple part." Before Isabella could object, Sophia had uncovered the phone. "Mr. Blake, want to come to dinner tomorrow? Mama makes the best enchiladas in New York." Sophia, Isabella reached for the phone, but her daughter was already negotiating. 7 o'clock. "Do you know our address?" "It's Sophia Elena Martinez." Isabella finally reclaimed the phone. "You can't just invite people to dinner without asking." "But you were going to say yes," Sophia said confidently. "I could tell by your voice." Marcus's laughter came through the phone, the first genuine laugh Isabella had heard from him in a decade. "She's incredible, Isabella." "Absolutely incredible." She's also presumptuous and manipulative, Isabella said, though her tone was fond. I wonder where she gets that from. Definitely not from me, Marcus said innocently. I would never manipulate a situation to spend time with beautiful women. Despite herself, Isabella smiled. Marcus Blake, are you flirting with me? Maybe a little, he admitted. Is it working? Sophia giggled, having heard both sides of the conversation. Mama's blushing. I am not blushing, Isabella protested, though she absolutely was. She totally is, Sophia said to Marcus. Her cheeks get red when she's happy embarrassed. Good to know, Marcus said, his voice warm with affection for this little girl who was fearlessly orchestrating a reunion. Isabella felt something shifting inside her chest, the same flutter she'd felt when Marcus used to call her during their courtship, when his voice alone could make her day brighter. Fine, she said before she could change her mind. Dinner tomorrow. 7 o'clock. But Marcus. Yes. Don't bring expensive wine or fancy flowers or any other billionaire gestures. Just bring yourself. Just myself, Marcus repeated softly. I can do that. After Isabella hung up, Sophia did a little victory dance around the foundation's lobby. Sophia, Isabella said seriously, what you just did was very bold. Are you mad? Isabella considered the question. Was she mad? Terrified, yes. Excited, absolutely. But mad? No, mi amor. I'm not mad. But sweetheart, Mr. Blake and I have a complicated history. This dinner doesn't mean we're going to be a family or that he's going to be around forever. Sophia's expression grew serious beyond her years. Mama, I know you think I don't understand grown-up stuff, but I do understand some things. Like what? Like how you look at his picture. Isabella's heart stopped. What picture? The one in your jewelry box. The one you think I don't know about. You look at it the same way you look at my paintings, like it makes you happy and sad at the same time. Isabella sat down heavily in one of the child-sized chairs, her daughter's perceptiveness overwhelming her. Sophia. And I know that when other kids talk about their daddies, you get that look like you're trying not to cry, Sophia continued gently. And I know that my eyes look just like his, because I saw it at the party. The 8-year-old moved to stand beside her mother, her small hand resting on Isabella's shoulder with comfort that seemed far too mature. I don't need a daddy, Mama. You're the best parent ever, and we're happy. But maybe you need him. Isabella pulled her daughter into a fierce hug, overwhelmed by the child's intuition and generosity. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best, Sophia said, hugging back tightly. And Mama, whatever happens, we'll be okay. We always are. The next evening, Marcus stood outside Isabella's brownstone at exactly 6:58 p.m., holding nothing but a small gift bag and fighting the worst case of nerves he'd experienced since his first board presentation. The building was quintessentially Brooklyn, tree-lined street, well-maintained stoops, the kind of neighborhood where children played on sidewalks and neighbors actually knew each other's names. It was everything his sterile Manhattan penthouse wasn't. Warm, lived in, real. Through the front window, he could see Sophia setting a table with intense concentration, arranging napkins with the precision of a little perfectionist. Isabella moved between the kitchen and dining room, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail, wearing jeans and a flowing blue top that made her look approachable and beautiful. This was the life he'd missed. Not just the big moments, birthdays and holidays, but the everyday magic of family dinner preparations, of a child helping her mother, of a home filled with love instead of expensive emptiness. At exactly 7 o'clock, Marcus rang the doorbell. I'll get it. Sophia's voice called from inside, followed by Isabella's quick correction. We answered the door together, remember? The door opened to reveal both of them. Isabella looking nervous but beautiful, Sophia practically vibrating with excitement. Hi, Mr. Blake. You came. Did you bring anything cool? Sophia, Isabella chided gently. That's not polite. It's okay. Marcus smiled, pulling out the small gift bag. I brought something small for Sophia, if that's all right. Sophia looked to her mother for permission, received a nod, and eagerly opened the bag. Inside was a set of professional-grade colored pencils and a sketchbook with her name embossed on the cover. These are the same pencils real artists use, Marcus explained. I thought you might like to try them. Sophia's eyes went wide. Really? Real artist pencils? Mama, look. Isabella examined the gift, thoughtful without being excessive, personal without being presumptuous. What do you say, mi amor? Thank you so much, Mr. Blake. I'm going to draw you a picture with them. I'd love that, Marcus said, his heart swelling at her enthusiasm. Come in, Isabella said, stepping aside. Dinner's almost ready. Marcus entered their home and immediately understood why Isabella and Sophia seemed so grounded, so content. The space was filled with life, Sophia's artwork covering every available wall space, family photos documenting 8 years of memories he'd missed, bookshelves overflowing with everything from children's stories to art history texts. Wow, he said softly, taking it all in. This is incredible. It's not much, Isabella said, suddenly self-conscious about their modest home compared to his penthouse. It's everything, Marcus corrected, his voice thick with emotion. It's a real home. Sophia grabbed his hand with the familiarity of a child who decided he belonged. Come see my room. I want to show you my art wall. After dinner, sweetheart, Isabella intervened. Let's eat while it's hot. The meal was simple but perfect, homemade enchiladas, Spanish rice, and conversation that flowed more easily than any of them had expected. Sophia regaled Marcus with stories about her art classes, her friends, her favorite books. Marcus shared carefully edited versions of his work, focusing on the technology rather than the financial empire. But it was watching Isabella that captivated him most. The way she encouraged Sophia's excitement while gently correcting her manners. The pride in her eyes when Sophia displayed her intelligence. The casual affection in her touch when she helped their daughter cut her food. She'd become an extraordinary mother, and seeing her in that role made Marcus fall in love with her all over again. Mr. Blake, Sophia said during dessert, can I ask you something personal? Sophia, Isabella warned, recognizing her daughter's tone. It's okay, Marcus said. What would you like to know? Do you live all alone in that big building? The question was innocent but piercing. I do, Marcus admitted. Doesn't that get lonely? Marcus glanced at Isabella, who was watching the exchange with careful attention. Yes, sweetheart. It gets very lonely. Maybe you could come have dinner with us more often, Sophia suggested with 8-year-old logic. Lonely is no good for anybody. Sophia, Isabella said softly. That's not something you decide for other people. But Mama, you're lonely sometimes too. I can tell. The truth hung in the air between them. Isabella looked at Marcus, seeing something in his eyes that made her breath catch, the same vulnerability that had first drawn her to him, but deeper now, tempered by years of regret and genuine transformation. Maybe, Isabella said carefully, we could do this again sometime. The hope in Marcus's expression was so raw, so grateful, that Isabella felt her last walls beginning to crumble. Maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. But first, they had to learn to be a family. The road to redemption is never easy. Have you ever had to rebuild trust after making a life-changing mistake? Drop a comment below sharing your experience, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories about love, forgiveness, and second chances. Marcus has taken the first steps toward rebuilding his family, but the real challenges are just beginning. Can a man who built an empire learn to build something even more precious, the trust of a daughter and the love of the woman he lost? 3 weeks had passed since that first dinner, and Marcus had become a regular presence in Isabella and Sophia's lives. Tuesday art sessions where he watched in amazement as his daughter created masterpieces with her new colored pencils. Saturday morning breakfast where Sophia insisted on making pancakes shaped like Daddy's building. Evening walks through Prospect Park where he learned about Sophia's dreams of becoming a famous artist, like Mama, but maybe with more colors. Every moment felt like a gift he didn't deserve, but treasured desperately. Marcus was reviewing quarterly reports in his office when his assistant Jennifer knocked urgently. Mr. Blake, your father is here. He seems upset. Before Marcus could respond, Richard Blake stormed into the office, his silver hair impeccably styled despite the fury radiating from his imposing frame. 3 weeks, Marcus. 3 weeks of missed board meetings, declined investor dinners, and ignored expansion opportunities. What the hell is going on? Marcus set down his papers calmly. I've been reconnecting with my family. Family? Richard's laugh was bitter. You mean that gold-digging artist and her bastard child? Marcus, I thought I raised you better than this. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Don't you dare talk about them that way. I'll talk about them however I want when they're destroying everything we've built. Richard slammed his fist on the desk. Do you have any idea how this looks? The great Marcus Blake, brought to his knees by some sob story about a child who may not even be his. She is mine, Marcus stood, his voice dangerous. Her name is Sophia, she's 8 years old, and she's the most incredible person I've ever met. Have you done a paternity test? The question hung in the air like poison. Marcus stared at his father, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time, a man so consumed with control and legacy that love seemed like weakness. I don't need a test. I know she's mine. You know. Richard scoffed. You hope. Just like you hoped that marriage would work out the first time. Face reality, son. Women like Isabella Martinez see men like us as lottery tickets. She's playing the long game. You're wrong. Am I? Then explain why she waited 9 years to contact you. Why she conveniently appeared at a charity gala where she knew you'd be. Why she's suddenly willing to play happy family after rejecting you for nearly a decade. The accusations wormed their way into Marcus's mind despite his best efforts to reject them. Had Isabella orchestrated their meeting? Was this elaborate manipulation? I can see the doubt in your eyes. Richard pressed his advantage. You're thinking like a businessman again. Good. Now let me make this simple. Choose. Them or Blake Technologies. You can't have both. What are you talking about? Richard pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. The Soul expansion requires your full attention. 6 months in Asia, building our Pacific Rim operations. It's worth $500 million in first-year revenue alone. Marcus opened the folder, scanning the timeline. 6 months. Half a year away from Sophia, just when she was beginning to trust him. I won't go. Then you're out, Richard said coldly. I'll call an emergency board meeting. Vote you out as CEO. Blake Technologies will survive without you, but you won't survive without Blake Technologies. Everything you are, everything you've built, it all disappears. You can't do that. Watch me. I built this company from nothing, and I won't let some sentimental weakness destroy it. Richard moved toward the door, then paused. You have 48 hours to decide. Soul, or lose everything. As the door closed behind his father, Marcus sank into his chair, the weight of the ultimatum crushing down on him. Everything he'd worked for, his entire identity, hung in the balance. His phone buzzed with a text from Isabella. Sophia's art show is Friday at 6 p.m. She really wants you there. She's been working on a special piece all week. Friday, the same day the Soul delegation expected his answer. That evening, Marcus sat in his penthouse, staring out at the city lights while his father's words echoed in his mind. His laptop displayed 2 screens. On the left, the Soul expansion proposal worth $500 million. On the right, a photo Isabella had sent of Sophia, putting finishing touches on her mystery artwork. His phone rang. Isabella's name appeared on the screen. Hi, her voice was warm, concerned. You sound different in your text earlier. Everything okay? Marcus closed his eyes, torn between protecting her from his problems and desperately needing to talk to someone who might understand. My father wants me to go to Seoul for 6 months. For work. Silence stretched between them. When Isabella spoke again, her voice was carefully controlled. 6 months is a long time. Isabella, I want you to know, whatever happens with my work situation, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not abandoning Sophia again. Marcus. She began, but he interrupted. I love her. I love both of you. And I know I don't have the right to say that after everything I've done, but it's true. Isabella's breath caught. They'd been dancing around their growing feelings for weeks, but neither had dared voice them so directly. I love you too, she whispered. I never stopped loving you, and that terrifies me. Why? Because loving you means trusting you with Sophia's heart. And if you break it? I won't, Marcus promised. I swear to you, Isabella, I will never leave again. But your father is giving me an ultimatum that isn't really a choice at all. Soul or lose everything I've built. What are you going to do? Marcus looked at the 2 screens again, money versus love, empire versus family. I'm going to choose what matters. Before Isabella could respond, urgent knocking interrupted their call. Marcus, I have to go. Someone's at the door. At 11 p.m.? Isabella, be careful. She opened the door to find a man in an expensive suit holding official-looking documents. Isabella Martinez? I'm serving you with a cease and desist order on behalf of Blake Holdings. You're to have no further contact with Marcus Blake or face legal action for attempted extortion. Isabella's blood ran cold. What are you talking about? Our client believes you're manipulating him using a child of questionable parentage to gain access to his wealth. This order prohibits any communication or meetings. The papers shook in Isabella's hands as she read Richard Blake's signature at the bottom. Marcus's father was trying to separate them legally. "Get off my property," she said, her voice deadly quiet. "Ma'am, if you violate this order, I said get off my property." The man retreated, leaving Isabella standing in her doorway with legal papers that felt like weapons designed to destroy her family. Upstairs, Sophia appeared on the landing in her pajamas. "Mama? Who was that? You sounded scared." Isabella quickly hid the papers. "No one important, mi amor. Go back to bed." But as Isabella tucked her daughter in, Sophia's perceptive eyes studied her mother's face. "Is Mr. Blake going away again?" The question hit Isabella like a knife. "I don't know, sweetheart. But I made him something special for the art show. I wanted to surprise him." "What did you make?" Sophia hesitated, then whispered, "A family portrait. Of all three of us. I was going to ask him. I was going to ask if he wanted to be my real daddy." Isabella's heart shattered as she held her daughter close, wondering how to protect her from the adult world's cruelty. Friday arrived gray and rainy, matching Marcus's mood perfectly. He'd spent 2 sleepless nights agonizing over his decision, finally reaching a conclusion that felt both terrifying and absolutely right. At 5 p.m., he walked into the Blake Technologies boardroom where his father and the sole investors waited. "Gentlemen," Richard Blake announced, "my son has made his decision regarding the Pacific expansion." Marcus looked around the table at the faces of men who'd helped build his empire. Good people who deserved to know the truth. "I'm resigning as CEO of Blake Technologies," he said quietly. The room erupted. Investors shouted questions. Board members demanded explanations. But Marcus's father simply smiled coldly. "Throwing away billions for a woman who doesn't even want you," Richard said. "I hope she's worth bankruptcy, son." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed his father the cease and desist order Isabella had photographed and sent him. "This is what you think of love? Of family? You're so terrified of losing control that you destroy a child's happiness. I'm protecting you. You're destroying me." Marcus slammed his hand on the table. "Just like you destroyed my relationship with Mom. Just like you've destroyed every meaningful connection in your life by choosing power over people." He stood to leave, then turned back one final time. "I choose love. I choose family. And I choose to be the father Sophia deserves and the man Isabella can trust." "Walk out that door and you're cut off completely," Richard threatened. "No Blake money, no Blake name, no Blake legacy." "Good," Marcus said. "I never wanted your legacy anyway." At 5:45 p.m., Marcus burst through the doors of Sophia's elementary school, his hair still damp from the rain, his suit wrinkled from running 6 blocks when traffic made his taxi impossible. The art show was in full swing, parents and children crowding around colorful displays. Marcus scanned frantically for Isabella and Sophia, panic rising that he might have missed everything. "Marcus!" He turned to see Isabella approaching, her expression unreadable. She looked beautiful in a simple black dress, but her eyes held a wariness that made his heart sink. "You came," she said softly. "Of course I came. I told Sophia I'd be here." "Despite the legal order?" Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Isabella, I had nothing to do with that. My father, Daddy." Sophia's voice cut through the crowd as she ran toward them, her face glowing with excitement. She wore a white dress with paint smudges on the sleeves, evidence of last-minute artistic touches. "You're here. You're really here." She launched herself into Marcus's arms, and he caught her, spinning her around as she giggled. "I promised I'd come, didn't I?" he said, setting her down gently. "Where's this masterpiece you've been working on?" Sophia grabbed both her parents' hands, pulling them through the crowd to her display area. Other parents watched curiously. Everyone recognized Marcus Blake from magazine covers, and speculation buzzed through the room. "Close your eyes," Sophia commanded when they reached her station. Marcus and Isabella exchanged glances, then obediently closed their eyes as Sophia positioned them in front of her easel. "Okay, open." Marcus opened his eyes and felt his world shift completely. The painting showed 3 figures standing in front of a house with a garden, a man with amber eyes, a woman with long dark hair, and a little girl between them, all holding hands. Above them, Sophia had painted the words, "My family," in rainbow colors. But it was the smaller details that broke Marcus's heart. The man's eyes had tears of joy, the woman's smile was radiant, and the little girl had painted tiny hearts floating around, all three figures. Do you like it? Sophia asked nervously. Marcus knelt down to her level, his voice thick with emotion. Sophia, it's the most beautiful thing anyone has ever made for me. Really? Even though you're rich and probably have lots of expensive art. Nothing will ever be more valuable to me than this, Marcus promised. Because it shows me what I want most in the world. What's that? Marcus looked up at Isabella, who had tears streaming down her face. To be part of your family. To be the daddy you painted in this picture. Sophia's eyes went wide. Really? You want to be my daddy? My real, forever daddy? More than anything, Marcus said. If your mama says it's okay. Both Marcus and Sophia turned to look at Isabella, who was overwhelmed by the moment, by the painting, by the love shining in her daughter's eyes. Mama, Sophia whispered. Can he be my daddy? Please. Isabella knelt down beside Marcus, taking both their hands. Mi amor, being someone's daddy isn't just about wanting it. It's about promising to be there through everything, good times and bad times, when you're happy and when you're sad, when you're easy to love and when you're difficult. She looked directly at Marcus. It means choosing us every single day, no matter what other choices you're offered. I choose you, Marcus said without hesitation. Both of you, every day, for the rest of my life. But what about your business? Your father said. I quit, Marcus interrupted. This afternoon. I chose love over money, family over empire. Isabella's eyes widened in shock. Marcus, you can't just. I can, and I did, he said firmly. Blake Technologies will survive without me, but I won't survive without you too. Sophia looked between her parents with growing excitement. Does this mean yes? Does this mean he can be my daddy? Isabella studied Marcus's face, seeing the same man she'd fallen in love with 10 years ago, but deeper now, tempered by loss and transformed by love. Yes, she whispered. Yes, it means yes. Sophia erupted in cheers, throwing her arms around both parents as other families at the art show turned to watch the emotional reunion. Marcus pulled Isabella into the embrace, and for the first time in 9 years, he felt complete. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the kitchen of their new home, a beautiful colonial in Westchester with enough space for a family and Isabella's art studio, watching Sophia help her mother make breakfast. Daddy, the pancakes are shaped like hearts, Sophia announced proudly. They're perfect, sweetheart, Marcus said, kissing the top of her head as he passed by to pour coffee. The domestic scene still amazed him daily. He traded his sterile Manhattan penthouse for morning chaos, board meetings for school plays, and quarterly reports for bedtime stories. His net worth had dropped significantly after leaving Blake Technologies, but his happiness had multiplied beyond measure. Marcus, Isabella said, sliding her arms around his waist from behind. The gallery confirmed the exhibition dates. Sophia's family series will be featured next month. Their daughter had created an entire series inspired by their reunion, paintings exploring themes of love, forgiveness, and what it meant to belong. The local gallery had been so impressed they'd offered her a junior artist showcase. She's going to be famous before she's 10, Marcus mused, watching Sophia carefully flip a heart-shaped pancake. Just like her mama, Isabella murmured against his shoulder. Marcus had started his own consulting firm, helping other tech entrepreneurs balance innovation with humanity. It was smaller than Blake Technologies, but infinitely more fulfilling. He worked from home 3 days a week, never missed school events, and had already coached Sophia's Little League soccer team to a championship. Speaking of which, Marcus said, turning in Isabella's arms, I have something for you. He pulled out a small velvet box, and Isabella's breath caught. Marcus, I know we're already engaged, he said quickly, but I wanted to give you a ring that represents who we are now, not who we were before. He opened the box to reveal a unique ring, a vintage emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds, with small paintings by Sophia incorporated into the band's design. She helped design it, Marcus explained. Every element represents our family, past, present, and future. Surprised, Sophia called from the stove, having been in on the secret. Do you like it, Mama? Isabella was crying too hard to speak, so she simply nodded as Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger. Is that a yes to marrying Daddy all over again? Sophia asked. That's a yes to everything, Isabella managed. To all of it. Forever. 1 year later. The wedding was held in their backyard under a canopy of autumn leaves, with 50 close friends and family members celebrating the family that had found its way back together. Sophia served as both flower girl and ring bearer, wearing a dress she designed herself with Isabella's help. But it was the vows that made everyone cry. "Isabella," Marcus said, his voice steady despite his emotion, "9 years ago, I thought success meant building an empire. You taught me that real success means building a life filled with love. You've given me the greatest gifts imaginable, your forgiveness, your trust, and the privilege of being Sophia's father." He turned to their daughter, who stood between them with a bouquet of flowers from their garden. "Sophia, I promise to be the daddy you painted in that picture, present, loving, and proud of you every single day. You've taught me that the best kind of wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in family dinners, bedtime stories, and the sound of your laughter filling our home." Isabella's vows were equally moving. "Marcus, you've shown me that people can change, that love can overcome past mistakes, and that sometimes the best thing you can do is give someone a second chance to be who they were always meant to be." As they kissed to seal their renewed marriage, Sophia cheered loudly, causing everyone to laugh and applaud. Later, as guests danced under string lights and Sophia showed off her latest paintings to anyone who would look, Marcus and Isabella stood together watching their celebration. "Any regrets?" Isabella asked softly. Marcus considered the question seriously. His relationship with his father remained strained, though they were slowly rebuilding trust. His bank account was considerably smaller than it had been a year ago. His business operated on a much smaller scale than Blake Technologies. But watching Sophia spin in her flower girl dress, her laughter carrying on the evening breeze, while Isabella's hand rested trustingly in his, Marcus had never been more certain of anything in his life. "Not a single one," he said, pulling his wife closer. "This is what winning actually looks like." "Daddy, Mama," Sophia called from across the yard. "Come dance with me." And they did, the three of them dancing together under the stars, a family that had been broken and made whole again through the power of love, forgiveness, and second chances. In the end, Marcus Blake learned that the most successful empire he could ever build wasn't made of technology or money. It was made of trust, laughter, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Some victories, he discovered, were worth more than all the gold in the world. This story proves that it's never too late to change your priorities and fight for what really matters. If Marcus and Isabella's journey inspired you, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Luck's Love Chronicles with Mr. Wentworth, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a story that could change your perspective on life and love. Share in the comments, what would you choose, empire or family? And remember, the greatest wealth isn't what you accumulate, but who you choose to share your life with. Until next time, this is Mr. Wentworth reminding you that love always wins when we're brave enough to choose it.